Good evening, this is brass-tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. The IndiGo crisis is far from getting over. Even today, more than 500 flights got cancelled. Over the last 5 days since this crisis began, more than 3,000 flights have gotten cancelled. It is clear that this was a case of gross mismanagement. The CEO, Peter Elbers, who you saw a moment ago, he's under fire. He was show-caused by the DGCA. He had time until 6 p.m. today. There's been a response from the DGCA that's been put out as well. We'll break that in just a moment here on brass-tacks, what the details are and what IndiGo is saying as to the reason for this complete meltdown. Elbers has been summoned again by the DGCA once more tomorrow. One thing is clear. This is not any ordinary screw-up by an airline. This was a monumental, a colossal case of misplanning and absolutely disastrous execution. And customers are the ones who've had to pay. They've lost their baggage, they've lost their money. A lot of people are now complaining that IndiGo is not fully refunding them. Third-party ticket bookers are not fully refunding them. The bottom line is this. Something colossal happened. Colossal mismanagement happened. And it is still far from normal. So the question is about accountability. The question is, will heads roll? And if it starts to roll, it has to roll from the top. Will the Civil Aviation Ministry step in? Will the CEO get sacked? Will the board be held accountable? These are questions that need to be asked, and rightfully so. People are angry. It's a public company. It's a listed company. The shareholders need to be asking these questions. The board has very eminent members. They're answerable as well. And of course, the CEO, with whom the buck stops, is answerable as well. All of these questions we will ask tonight on the show here on brass-tacks, but this has become a huge issue, a huge talking point even in Parliament, where the Civil Aviation Minister, Mr. Ram Mohan Naidu, was forced to speak to the upper house today. He will be speaking to the lower houses of Parliament tomorrow. He'll be making a statement. Today he made a statement in the Rajya Sabha. He basically said that the government is leaving no stone unturned to ensure justice against non-compliance, and if IndiGo is found guilty of any kind of misdemeanor, then there will be a heavy price to pay. Listen in to what the minister had to say.
Let me tell you that we are not taking this situation easily. We are doing an inquiry and we will take very, very strict action, not only for this situation, but also as an example. We will set an example for all the airlines. If there is any miscompliance, any non-compliance or non-adherence for any single person, any entity or any organization or any operator functioning in this civil aviation, we will take very, very strict action so that we set an example in the industry.
Now, the statement from the minister comes against the backdrop of the IndiGo CEO, Peter Elbers. He's made back-to-back statements. He's put out video statements over the last couple of days. When the crisis first hit, the CEO communicated to the staff of IndiGo that the airline has not been able to live up to its expectations. This was on the very first day, on the 4th of December, a couple of days, in fact, after the crisis actually became as bad and as unmanageable as it became. Then the next day, on the 5th of December, he basically put out another statement. This was a video statement where he confirmed that the airline had initiated a reboot of all its systems and schedules, which thereby led to these disruptions. And then after battling the crisis now for 5 days straight, yesterday again, Mr. Elbers put out a video statement saying that the reboot strategy had finally worked and restoration operations are underway. He's asked for time until the 10th, between the 10th and the 15th of December, for operations to come back to complete normalcy. As of today, though, more than 1,800 flights out of the 2,300 or so that IndiGo operates, 1,800 flights have operated, about 500 had to be cancelled. So things, if they are coming to normal, they're coming at a snail's pace. They're really very, very slowly crawling back to a degree of normalcy. Now, the crisis, the peak point, of course, the number of cancellations has been coming down, no doubt about it. In fact, if you look at, how the graph is shaping, clearly last weekend, starting with Friday, was the worst, where there were more than 1,600 cancellations that happened on Friday. And progressively, it's been coming down. The next day, on Saturday, there were 800 cancellations. The day after that, on Sunday, there was, again, 650 cancellations. Today, it's come down to 500. So cumulatively, over the last week or so, there's been more than 3,000 cancellations. It is coming down. No one is disputing that fact. But the fact that it is coming down so slowly. Look, there are only two ways to resolve this crisis. Either IndiGo hires new pilots, and they will need to hire about 60, maybe 70 or 100 pilots, and that's not going to happen overnight, or they reduce the number of sectors that they're operating in. Either of which will cause disruption, either option will cause some amount of pain to the customer. So this is not a problem that's going to go away in a hurry. While the operations may be returning to a degree of normalcy, and like I said, it might be happening quite slowly, throughout this crisis, there was no public statement from any of the top management, the board of directors of IndiGo Airlines. And it has some very, very big names, no doubt about it, some very illustrious names. We've not heard a word from any of them. Starting with Mr. Vikram Mehta, who's the chairman and independent non-executive director. He's not said anything either on his social media profiles or anywhere else. Rahul Bhatia is one of the promoters of IndiGo Airlines. He's the managing director. Again, Mr. Bhatia has not said pip squeak since this IndiGo crisis began. And then you have a whole host of people who are on part of the board. Again, none of them have reacted either officially from their social media handles or given a soundbite to any television channel or said anything. That includes former Air Chief Marshal Birinder Dhanoa, former IAF Chief Michael Gordon Whitaker. He's again an independent non-executive director. M. Damodaran used to be the SEBI chairman in his time. He's an independent non-executive director. Again, he's not said anything. Mr. Amitabh Kant was the CEO of the Niti Aayog. Again, he's not said anything about the IndiGo crisis. Greg Albert Swaretsky was with the FAA in the US. He's not said anything. Anil Parashar, again, non-independent, non-executive director, no word from him. And Peter Elbers has put out these 2 or 3 videos, which again, frankly, I'm not sure how much that is helping resolve this crisis or being able to communicate better about how quickly they can resolve this crisis. So this is the illustrious board of directors of IndiGo Airlines. We've not heard anything from any of these individuals other than the CEO, but the buck has to stop somewhere. Someone has got to take responsibility for it, and someone needs to be held accountable for this colossal meltdown. We're getting a piece of breaking news. I want to go to that. The DGCA, the authority that is the regulator, the monitor for civil aviation in this country, IndiGo has now responded to the show cause notice that was issued to it. The DGCA had issued that show cause notice. There were major operational disruptions, large-scale flight cancellations. IndiGo has, said it's profusely apologetic for the inconvenience caused to the passengers, but the reason that they have cited for the disruptions were because of a compounding effect of multiple factors, creating an unforeseeable confluence. Now, was it unforeseeable, or did they not plan better for what was entirely foreseeable set of factors? That we will get into in just a second. The preliminary causes that they have listed, IndiGo has listed in their reply to the show cause notice, includes, and I'm quoting directly from there, minor technical glitches, winter schedule changes, adverse weather, aviation congestion, and challenges in implementing the FDTL Phase 2 crew rules. Now that FDTL, which is singularly the reason why this has happened, is something that was in the making for the last 2 years. And FDTL came into effect from November 1. So for a whole month, they had smooth operations or near smooth operations until the mega collapse happened starting December 1. So clearly something is amiss. Something is not adding up. Payal Mehta is now joining us. Payal, so take us through what else has IndiGo said in its defense. And does the defense really cut ice? That's the bottom line. It seems pretty wishy-washy.
Well, of course, the most important point that actually led to the kind of chaos we really saw, that is actually featuring on the last point on IndiGo's list as well. IndiGo was well aware of the fact, even if you accept that, it was because of, reasons that were beyond their control, like weather, etc. IndiGo has been assigned many, many more routes, Zaka, for the winter time. What were they doing about it? Can they deny from the fact that, in place of recruiting, they were losing people? So, for example, if they recruited 150 pilots, they had lost 200, the attrition was 200, which clearly meant that they were already minus 50 as well. Did they contact anybody in the government so far and say that they did not have, did not find it easy to recruit? How did Air India complete all their recruitments? How did Akasa complete all their recruitments? Whatever rules were set for everybody. There was no exceptional time given to anybody. IndiGo was just merely trying to arm twist, given the fact that there's so much of market share in the market. 70% is what has been there. But government sources that I just spoke to, Zaka, have been saying that there is no bias for such an argument coming in from IndiGo, and IndiGo will be taught a lesson. Like the minister said in the afternoon in Parliament, an exemplary lesson will be taught. We are just looking at, having a meeting that is going to take place in a few minutes from now at the Civil Aviation Ministry, which is going to be chaired by Civil Aviation Minister Mr. Rammohan Naidu. And you can expect some tough decisions to come in that meeting, with the fact that there's always been a growing clamor saying that if IndiGo cannot fly the number of flights that they've been given, why are they being given more flights by the DGCA for the winter schedule as well? So truncating of the schedules that have been pre-assigned to them is also on the cards as well. We have to just wait in a bit from now to see how this response really comes in from the government. But there's no doubt whatsoever government says that, taking people for a jolly ride is not acceptable in the government, and IndiGo needs to learn will be taught to them.
All right, we'll leave it at that, Payal. We'll see what kind of action the government takes on IndiGo, but it's clear that some accountability needs to be fixed. Some heads need to roll. And like I said, the only two ways you can sort of work around the new FDTL rules is if IndiGo hires more pilots, which is not going to happen overnight, or they simply have to curtail the excess routes that they are servicing. Meanwhile, in an exclusive conversation to CNN News 18's Anvit Srivastav, an IndiGo pilot who's made some glaring revelations about what has gone wrong, what was the work culture there in the company, and how things came to such a pass where it was a complete collapse over the last 3 or 4 days, these flight cancellations, how and why it happened. Now, while the airline has been issuing these statements, you can see Peter Elbers, who's the CEO, putting out these video statements. I'm not sure whether or not this is really cutting ice both inside and outside the company. This is what the IndiGo pilot had to say.
Over the last 4 to 5 years, there's been utter chaos in India's aviation sector. Why did this happen? Why thousands of flights had to be cancelled? Why thousands of passengers were stranded? We have one person, an insider of the IndiGo. We reached out to multiple people on the administrative side as well as on the flying side. One person who agreed to speak with us. We'll speak with him and find out what actually went wrong. A very good morning, sir, and welcome to CNN News 18. My first question is, as an integral part of the airline and someone who's privy to its inside operations, why did this occur? Can you please detail for us why did this happen in the first place?
We will have to go back to the understanding that IndiGo, being the largest airline operator of the country with 67% shareholding, their arrogance has set in. They have started feeling from last few years that DGCA can be manipulated by them and anything and everything can be get with. When this November implementation happened because of the Honorable High Court, they started taking flight cancellation on purpose, giving and creating a data that we are losing flights, cancelling flights because of FDTL issue. In my personal opinion and in my full calculation and my experience with the airline industry, I can tell it that till November they were making data. In December, they could not control what they started on themselves. This is the chaos that they have created and they could not retract back from it.
So you have been associated with the airline for a long time, and after this 4 to 5 days of utter chaos, how do you feel as a pilot when you're saying that you were available to fly like many others but they were not put on rosters? Whatever has unfolded in the 4 to 5 days, how do you feel about it?
See, today everybody is abusing or giving their opinion about the airline. This IndiGo has defined aviation, civil aviation in India. What they have done and what they have achieved is commendable. Having said this, let me tell you also, in last few years they have become arrogant. They have stopped thinking that they are working with humans. They have started thinking as if we are all the workers, all the frontline workers, the first phase, pilot, cabin crew, ground staff. They are like computers which they can switch off and switch on at their will. This has gone wrong in last 5 to 6 years, or maybe I'll say 8 years now. That effect has exhausted the workers, that affected, exhausted the frontline warriors. That is the reason Indigo is also the airline, I think, among top in the world where they are losing trained manpower. They are unable to retain
Hearing
their
from an Indigo pilot saying that over the last few years they've become so arrogant because of their market share that they think they can arm twist the ministry, the DGCA, etc. And he thinks that something that happened over the last 5 days is proof of that. There's a fundamental question that Indigo has not answered, certainly not answered sufficiently, not even in their response to the DGCA. The new FDTL rules have been in place since November 1. Why did Indigo operations collapse the way in which they did a whole month after the new rules came into place? What did they do right in November, which clearly went out the window in December, which is in the first week of December is when this meltdown happened? What went wrong? And does anyone believe that it's just the FDTL rules, the manner in which it was brought about, or the lack of implementation of it, that's the reason to blame? Because clearly if they could run with the new rules for one whole month with minor disruptions, then why couldn't they extend it for the next month as well? Captain Amit Singh is founder, Safety Matters Foundation. Captain Ehsan Khalid is also joining us, veteran Indian Air Force pilot, instructor and examiner. Captain Khalid, let me start with you first. You know, this is an airline that prided itself on operational efficiency. They run the largest number of flights, service the largest number of sectors, have the largest number of crew. And you heard from one of the pilots there that, look, the crew was available. They wanted to fly, but Indigo was not rostering them. What is going on? How does one explain how such an airline just came apart at the seams over the last 5 days?
Okay, we have debated a lot on the new FDTL rules. Have very little to do with this kind of cancellation. There are two things that I will bring about. One is the statement of the CEO when he said that, the system was to be rebooted. Right. And an admin call was taken that on 3rd of December, we will reboot it and paralyze the entire aviation for next 3, 4, 5 days. That was a planned move. The question is that when was that decision taken? Why DGCA could not have been told? Why passengers could not have been told 7 days before, following their experiment in November, that fine, we have seen this, the only way we can get out of it is by rebooting the system and there will be disruptions after 7 days. Everybody could have done the planning of their travel accordingly. But the shock impact would not have been there. Whether the shock impact was part of the planning or not, I don't know. But the shock impact did happen, and we have seen that. That is point number one. Number two that I would like to bring out with a lot of responsibility is that almost 50% of the pilots of Indigo are on 50-hour contract, and rest, about say another 40% would be on 70-hour contract. That means they will fly in a month only 50 hours, while the new FDTL rule, all the old FDTL rule allows them to fly up to 100 hours.
Okay.
Even the senior captains are flying only 70-hour contract. So when there was an increase in manpower requirement because of new FDTL rules, not even a letter was sent to any of the pilots that you will need to put in more hours, and pilots could have refused. So it is not that they have to either engage more pilots, train more pilots. No, Indigo has 5,000 pilots who are underutilized in number of hours, but not on number of days. Now, this is where the parity problem comes in. Indigo uses 50 hours, but makes their pilot fly on maybe 24 days. They do not want to fly them for 100 hours in 20 days, because then they will have to pay more. So it is not number of pilots that they are lacking. It is their intention not to fly them to the limit to which FDTL actually allows them. I would be surprised if in the month of November, any of the pilot of Indigo has touched 100 hours.
No, but so tell me, so the reason why they're not flying 100 hours is because you're saying that the contract does not allow them, and B, they'll have to be paid more.
Yeah, the contract says that you will fly only up to 70 hours, and if you fly more, then we will pay you more. So they don't want to pay more. So they don't have to actually engage more pilots. They have to just tell them that fine, you fly more and I will pay more. If they refuse, then there would be a different problem of FDTL. So here the problem is definitely nothing to do with operations.
Okay.
Definitely nothing to do with weather. Definitely nothing to do with new FDTL rule.
Yeah, no,
It has to do with
the
something
response has been minor technical glitches, adverse weather changes, and last one, of course, the FDTL rules. But now let me ask Captain Amit Singh, for whatever it was, bad planning, they could have, or maybe they didn't want to part with more profits, whatever the reason was, a colossal mess has happened. And it has happened over the last 5 days. It's only getting slightly better. Maybe by the 10th it will get better. That's the deadline that the CEO asked for. The point is that the passengers who've had a harrowing time loss, money loss, luggage loss, they're asking for compensation. Will this end with just some kind of fine, even if it's a hefty fine put on IndiGo, or will there be exemplary action? Will there be heads that will roll? That's what people want to know. Captain Singh, are there grounds for the ministry or the DGCA to take this exemplary action against the IndiGo personnel, the top management of IndiGo?
So there are two parts to it. One is a regulatory part, other is a corporate part. The regulatory part is taken care by DGCA, and they are conducting an inquiry. Surprisingly, we don't know who will conduct an inquiry on DGCA itself. How did they allow this to happen? But at max, under the current regulations, DGCA can fine them under various provisions, 1 crore each. So if there are 4 provisions of the regulation which they have violated, as per the show cause notice, 4 crores or 5 crores, which they can pay anytime. Accountable managers, they can basically ask them to leave. That is the power of DGCA. But that doesn't solve the purpose. On the corporate side, the Competition Commission of India can take it up suo motu. I don't know why they haven't taken so far for abuse of domination of power. So they are in a dominant position and they have abused their power. That is the clause which is there in CCI, Section 4. And the reason for abuse is because they knew that they didn't have enough pilots for the enhanced winter schedule, and they continued to sell tickets. They brought people to the airport, underwent security to the plane, and then cancelled. So that is the kind of abuse. And for that, they can fine them about 10% of their gross turnover of the last 3 years, which could be around 5,000 or 6,000 crores.
But Captain, tell me
that
this.
is the kind of fine.
Tell me this. Why isn't either the government or IndiGo itself saying that we will not service so many flights, we will not service so many sectors? We're running 2,300 in a day. We will only run 1,500 flights in a day. Why are they not saying that?
That is the basic point. If they have enhanced their service by 6% in the new schedule, and the reason they're giving for the whole mess is shortage of pilots, then they should curtail service.
Exactly.
But the government, on the other hand, is giving them exemption on the FDTL, which is a safety issue, in order to service the new schedule, enhanced schedule, which means the government is helping them earn revenue in the garb of helping passengers. So as it is, flights are getting cancelled, so they should curtail the schedule so that within the number of pilots available, they should give a better service.
So who is to take this call? Clearly, the company doesn't want to take this call, Captain Khalid. As you said, if it was their call, they would have asked pilots to work more and paid them more. They don't want to take that call. The truncation of routes, I don't know if the ministry wants to step in. Maybe the ministry will step in and say that extra winter schedule you will not service now because you simply have been found lacking. Somebody's got to take that call, because otherwise this problem is not going away. I mean, even in the 10th or the 15th, the deadline that the CEO has asked for, I don't see them being able to service this many sectors at this rate with the existing capacity and with not wanting to pay pilots more. Captain Khalid.
Yeah, so the choice is very clear that if they were needing 15% more manpower to be added to meet the present schedule, they could not have been given 15% higher routes to fly in winter schedule. That should be withdrawn. That is one part, right? So here we have an airline which is saying that they are short of manpower by 20% and then submitting a flight plan schedule for additional 15% route. So this 15% route, they want it to be allocated to them because they don't want it to go into their competitors. So they don't, if they don't do it, then somebody else will do it.
No. So is it the DGCA, is it the government, the ministry? Who will do this? Who will take away those extra 15% winter scheduled routes that they've got, the extra routes that they've got?
Obviously, it is the DGCA that allocates and that can take away. So now the time has come that it has to be taken away. And if once it is taken away, then other airlines can actually put in their resources to fill that gap.
Okay. Captain Singh, I'll give you the final word. Like I said, I said this at the top as well. There are only two ways you can resolve this under the new FDTL rules, if that is the impediment, as IndiGo seemed to have suggested in its response. The final reason was FDTL rules. You either have to hire... that's their claim. That's their claim.
Okay.
You either have to hire new pilots for it, which is not going to happen overnight, or you simply have to cut routes. Neither of it the airline is willing to do. And if the airline is not willing to do, then somebody needs to step in and do it for them. In this case, either the regulator needs to or the ministry needs to. Captain Singh.
So, I'll give you an example. When Jet Airways shut down or Kingfisher shut down, there were so many extra routes, so many extra slots to be serviced. So, those were distributed among other airlines. So, now if SpiceJet has capacity or Air India has capacity, Akasa has capacity, so additional slots given to IndiGo must be distributed. So, that is the immediate solution which the DGCA can take. But for some reason, they're continuing to compromise safety by giving extension to the FDTL. And the second part I want to say...
And you're clear, Captain, that the extension of FDTL is a safety issue. They're compromising with passenger safety by allowing IndiGo this breather for 2 months. You're clear about that?
Yeah, fatigue is a matter of safety. So when there are limits laid to it and you want to give an extension to that, which means make it more flexible or enhance it, so that is a compromise with safety. That is very clear. And if something happens, God forbid, then who's responsible for that?
Yeah.
So that is why I'm saying that it has to be, routes have to be distributed. And for the passengers' compensation, there has to be a bill. A bill has to be passed by the parliament so that not just refunds, but compensation has to be given to the passengers who have lost time. Value has to be fixed on the time.
No.
So that
not only are they complaining that they have not got... First of all, they've not got the entire ticket fare back. I believe a lot of them are saying that third-party booking apps are deducting whatever their fees are and then only returning the base fare. So a lot of people are complaining about that as well. But be that as it may, I'll give the final word to Captain Khalid. By when do you see this resolving and how do you see this resolving? Because, like I said, I don't see this ending by the 10th, as the CEO seems to have said in his statement.
Here we have a situation where other smaller airlines are keen to increase their route share, and they say they have the manpower and resources and they don't have the routes. There is another airline which is causing the complete chaos and shutdown and is sitting with the routes. So it is very clear that not only these 15% should be given, but there should be an penalty paid given to them to reduce further 10% so that their efficiency can come up to optimum, while others who are willing to service all the routes should be given some incentive.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Captain Khalid and Captain Singh, thank you very much for joining us. I think that's really just the only way to deal with this problem. IndiGo needs to be told that that extra routes that they got because of the winter schedule or whatever it is, that has to be taken away from them. And only the DGCA can do that. So far, instead of doing that, which is the most obvious solution to this problem, and giving it to those smaller airlines which want to service those routes, instead of doing that, they've actually given a 2-month extension to these rules, which, as Captain Singh said, is markedly compromising on passenger safety.